The desert lion Omar Mukhtar was born on the 20th of August, 1858 and was executed by hanging on the 16th of September, 1931 by the Italian colonial authorities in Libya. Omar Mukhtar, also known as the Lion of the Desert, was one of the most respected and celebrated anti-colonial leaders of the 20th century. He became the symbol of resistance in Libya against Italian occupation during the early decades of the 20th century. His life was simple, religious, disciplined, and devoted to the freedom of his people. Although he ultimately failed to expel the Italians during his lifetime, his struggle inspired generations of Arabs, Africans, and Muslims, and his name later became inseparable from Libyan nationalism and the global history of resistance against colonialism. Omar Mukhtar was born around 1858 in the region of Cyrenaica in eastern Libya, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire. He belonged to the Mnifa tribe and grew up in a poor but deeply religious environment. From an early age he received education in Islamic studies under the Senussi order, a religious and social movement founded in North Africa during the 19th century. The Senussi movement emphasized discipline, spiritual purification, social justice, and resistance against foreign domination. Mukhtar studied the Qur'an, Islamic law, and Arabic literature, and eventually became a teacher and preacher. His students respected him for his honesty, wisdom, and calm personality. The conditions in Libya changed dramatically after Italy invaded the country in 1911. Italy, like many European powers of that era, wanted colonies in Africa and considered Libya an opportunity to expand its empire. The Italian forces occupied the coastal cities but faced fierce resistance from the local population, especially in the deserts and mountains of Cyrenaica. Omar Mukhtar emerged as one of the most important leaders of this resistance. Although he was already over 50 years old when the struggle intensified, he displayed extraordinary courage, patience, and leadership. Mukhtar was not a military officer trained in modern warfare. He was primarily a religious teacher and tribal leader. Yet he understood the geography of Libya better than the Italians and mastered the methods of guerrilla warfare. Under his command, small groups of fighters launched sudden attacks on Italian military camps, supply lines, and patrols. After attacking, they quickly disappeared into the mountains and deserts. These tactics exhausted the Italian forces for many years. One of the remarkable qualities of Omar Mukhtar was his moral discipline during war. He instructed his fighters not to harm civilians unnecessarily and not to betray prisoners. Even many Italian officers admitted that he was a man of integrity and honor. His simple lifestyle also increased his popularity. He did not seek wealth or luxury. He lived among ordinary people and shared their hardships. This closeness created strong loyalty between him and the Libyan tribes. The Italian government considered Mukhtar extremely dangerous because he united different tribes and transformed scattered resistance into an organized movement. During the 1920s, especially under the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini, Italy adopted very harsh policies in Libya. The Italians built concentration camps, destroyed villages, confiscated animals and crops, and forced large populations into detention camps to isolate the resistance fighters from civilian support. Thousands of Libyans died from hunger, disease, and displacement during this brutal campaign. Despite these hardships, Omar Mukhtar continued fighting for nearly 20 years. His endurance amazed both his supporters and his enemies. The Italians possessed modern weapons, aircraft, armored vehicles, and a regular army, while Mukhtar's fighters were poorly equipped and depended largely on local support. Yet the resistance survived because of Mukhtar's leadership, his understanding of desert warfare, and the determination of the Libyan people. Mukhtar's struggle was not merely military. It was also political, religious, and moral. He believed foreign occupation was unjust and that defending one's homeland was both a national and religious duty. His speeches and teachings encouraged patience, sacrifice, and faith. He became a spiritual symbol as much as a military commander. Many people saw him as a protector of Libyan dignity and Islamic identity against colonial domination. However, the balance of power increasingly turned against the Libyan resistance. The Italians strengthened their military campaigns and built barriers along Libya's borders to stop supplies and volunteers from neighboring regions. They used aircraft extensively and developed intelligence networks to track resistance movements. Gradually the resistance became isolated and weakened. In September 1931, Omar Mukhtar was captured after a battle near Slonta. According to historical accounts, his horse stumbled during combat and he was surrounded by Italian forces. His capture was a major event because the Italians believed the resistance would collapse without him. Mukhtar was already more than 70 years old at that time, yet he remained calm and dignified even as a prisoner. The Italians quickly organized a military trial. The trial was largely symbolic because the authorities had already decided to execute him. During the proceedings, Mukhtar refused to surrender his principles. He defended the right of Libyans to resist occupation and showed no fear. Witnesses described him as composed and spiritually strong despite knowing his fate. On the 16th of September, 1931, Omar Mukhtar was publicly executed by hanging before thousands of Libyans in the concentration camp of Suluk. The Italians hoped his death would terrorize the population and end resistance. In the short term, the resistance movement weakened significantly after his execution. Militarily, Italy succeeded in consolidating its control over Libya for some years afterward. From that perspective, Mukhtar failed to achieve his immediate goal of liberating Libya during his lifetime. Yet history often judges leaders not only by immediate victories or defeats but also by the enduring meaning of their struggle. Although Mukhtar did not defeat the Italians militarily, his resistance preserved the spirit of Libyan nationalism. His courage inspired later generations who eventually achieved Libyan independence in 1951. His image became a symbol of sacrifice, dignity, and resistance against oppression throughout the Arab and Muslim worlds. After Libya gained independence, Omar Mukhtar was honored as a national hero. Streets, schools, and institutions were named after him. His story also became internationally known through books and films, especially the movie Lion of the Desert, in which Anthony Quinn portrayed him with great emotional power. The film introduced millions of people around the world to his life and struggle. Omar Mukhtar's legacy continues to carry important lessons. He demonstrated that resistance against oppression does not always depend on advanced weapons or material power. Sometimes moral conviction, leadership, and patience can sustain a movement for decades. He also showed that religious faith and nationalism could combine in anti-colonial struggles. At the same time, his story reveals the tragic human cost of colonial wars and the suffering endured by ordinary populations caught between empires and resistance movements. In the end, Omar Mukhtar stands as one of the great figures of modern anti-colonial history. He was a teacher who became a warrior, an old man who challenged an empire, and a prisoner who faced death with dignity. Though he failed to free Libya during his own lifetime, he succeeded in creating a lasting symbol of courage and national resistance. His life reminds the world that some struggles continue beyond the lives of those who begin them, and that moral victory can sometimes outlive military defeat.